"Where is your house, Maribel?" Vanessa asked in a sweet, mocking tone, loud enough for every guest to hear. "Oh, that's right. You sleep in the storage room behind the laundry." Laughter rippled around the table, sharp and careless. Darius, her only son, threw his head back and laughed too, as if it were harmless fun. Maribel stood frozen, a serving spoon still in her hand, her tired fingers trembling. She had spent hours cooking for this dinner, yet they spoke of her like she was nothing. Slowly, she placed the spoon down and looked at Vanessa calmly. "And where is your rent money?" she asked softly. The room fell into a stunned silence. Vanessa blinked, confused. "Excuse me," she stammered. Maribel straightened her back and added, "This apartment belongs to me. I paid for it with my own sweat." Glasses hovered mid-air. Forks froze. No one dared speak. Darius frowned. "Mom, what are you saying?" he asked nervously. Maribel's voice remained steady. "I am saying I will not be mocked in my own home." She folded her napkin with slow care and walked away, leaving everyone staring. Behind her, whispers erupted like a storm breaking through a quiet sky. Later, inside the small room they had turned into a store space, Maribel sat on her narrow bed, staring at the cracked wall. Boxes of Vanessa's old shoes surrounded her like silent witnesses. Her hands shook as she whispered to herself, "How did it come to this?" Tears stung her eyes, but none fell. Outside, she heard Darius and Vanessa arguing in hushed voices. "You went too far," Darius muttered. Vanessa snapped back. She needed to be reminded of her place. Maribel closed her eyes and sighed. Something inside her had finally shifted, like a door long locked now opening. She thought back to the years when she had not been weak, when she had been known as Mrs. Maribel Knox, a strong woman with pride and fire. She remembered her late husband, Hector, and how they built their life from nothing. "We will own our home one day," Hector used to say, smiling through exhaustion. "And no one will look down on us," Maribel would reply. Now, she wondered how she had become a shadow in the same house she paid for. "No more," she whispered, gripping the edge of the bed. "I will not live unseen." The next morning, Darius knocked softly on her door. "Mom, can we talk?" he asked. Maribel opened it just slightly. His face showed discomfort, not guilt. "Vanessa didn't mean it like that," he said quickly. Maribel studied him quietly. "Then what did she mean, Darius?" she asked. He hesitated. "She jokes sometimes," he murmured. Maribel's lips pressed together. "A joke that humiliates your mother is cruelty," she replied calmly. "And your laughter hurts more than her words." Darius looked down, suddenly unsure of himself, like a child again. Her mind drifted further back to when Darius was still small and tender. She remembered carrying him on her back while scrubbing clothes for wealthy families. "Mama, my legs hurt," little Darius would complain. "Hold on, baby. We must be strong," she would say with tired smiles. She never imagined that the same boy would one day laugh at her pain. The memory twisted inside her chest. "Where did I fail?" she whispered to the quiet room. But even as she questioned herself, she knew the truth. She had simply loved too much and demanded too little respect. Vanessa made no effort to apologize. At breakfast, she clinked her coffee cup and muttered, "Some people forget their role." Darius chuckled awkwardly. Maribel slowly lifted her gaze. "I know my role very well," she said evenly. "And from today, it will change." Vanessa scoffed. "What does that even mean?" she asked. Maribel rose carefully from her chair. "It means this house will no longer be run without my voice," she replied. The firmness in her tone unsettled them both. Silence lingered as thick as morning fog. As she returned to her room, her thoughts wandered to Hector's funeral, the day loneliness wrapped her like cold iron. "You must not let anyone silence you," Hector had said once. "You are stronger than you think." Those words echoed now with new meaning. She remembered how Darius had arrived late, distracted, while Vanessa complained about the heat. That was when the distance truly began. She had swallowed her pain back then, choosing peace over confrontation. But peace had turned into chains. "I release myself," she murmured, staring into the old cracked mirror. That afternoon, Maribel called a lawyer named Mr. Alden, a calm man who had always respected her. "I want to review my property documents," she told him firmly. "Of course, Mrs. Knox," he replied. "You are still the legal owner." Hearing those words stitched strength back into her spine. When Vanessa overheard the call, she scoffed loudly. "Plotting drama again," she smiled. Maribel responded softly. "No, Vanessa. I am preparing for reality." The quiet power in her voice unsettled the younger woman more than shouting ever could. Memories of her youth returned vividly. She and Hector had lived in a one-room shack when they married. "One day we'll own more than this," Hector promised. "And we will never treat our elders like trash." They had sacrificed everything to raise Darius well. Now, that same son stood uncertainly between loyalty and convenience. Watching him struggle reminded Maribel how far he had drifted. "You taught me respect," Darius muttered later that night. Maribel nodded slowly. "And you forgot it just as easily," she replied. Dinner that evening was colder than before. Vanessa pushed her plate away and whispered, "This is becoming uncomfortable." Darius frowned. "Let's not push things further," he urged. Maribel placed her fork down calmly. "Truth often feels uncomfortable," she said. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting." Maribel leaned back. "You mistake silence for weakness," she replied softly. Her words settled heavy between them. No screaming, no drama. Just unshaken clarity. Darius swallowed hard, suddenly aware that the control they thought they had was slipping away like sand through fingers. That night, Maribel packed her few belongings carefully. A faded photograph of Hector, her worn Bible, and her simple clothes. "You're leaving?" Darius asked quietly from the doorway. "No," she answered. "I am preparing to reclaim my dignity." He frowned. "I don't understand." She met his eyes gently. "One day you will," she said. Vanessa whispered behind him. "She's being dramatic." Maribel smiled faintly. "No, dear," she replied. "I'm finally being honest." That honesty hung between them, sharp yet strangely freeing. As weeks passed, Maribel began asserting her presence again. She no longer cleaned behind their carelessness or cooked without acknowledgement. "You forgot to wash your plate," she told Darius plainly. He blinked in surprise. "You usually do it." She shook her head. "Not anymore," Vanessa muttered. "This is ridiculous." Maribel's voice remained firm. Respect requires effort from both sides. The new tone of authority she carried felt foreign yet empowering. Gradually the house shifted. The invisible woman they mocked was slowly reclaiming her rightful place with steady resolve. Late one evening, Darius approached her quietly. "Mom, are you angry with me?" he asked. She sighed. "I'm disappointed," she answered honestly. He looked ashamed. "I didn't notice how much we hurt you," he admitted. Maribel nodded slowly. "Pain unnoticed becomes resentment," she said gently. He hesitated. "I want to fix it," he whispered. She gave him a long look. "Then start by remembering who built the ground you stand on." Darius swallowed and nodded, realizing change would require more than empty apologies. Vanessa, however, remained stubborn. "She's trying to control us," she hissed bitterly. Darius frowned. "She only asked for respect," he replied. Vanessa scoffed. "This isn't her house anymore." The moment those words left her mouth, Maribel stepped in calmly. "It never stopped being mine," she said coldly. Vanessa froze. "We live here," she snapped. Maribel's eyes remained steady. "And you were welcomed," she replied. "But welcome must never be mistaken for ownership." The silence that followed revealed the shifting balance of power once again. That night, Maribel stood by the window, watching the dim lights of the street below. She remembered Hector's laughter, his worn hands tightening around hers. "You are not meant to shrink," he had always told her. The hum of the city felt distant compared to the storm inside her heart. I will no longer apologize for existing, she breathed quietly. Her reflection stared back, older yet awake. Wrinkles lined her face, but strength sharpened her gaze. The timid woman they mocked was gone. In her place rose a woman reborn through truth. The following morning, Mr. Alden arrived with documents in hand. Vanessa watched nervously from the door. Everything legally remains under your name, he confirmed. Maribel nodded slowly. Very well. Darius shifted uneasily. What does this mean for us, he asked. Maribel glanced at him calmly. It means this home will be built on respect or not at all. Vanessa exhaled sharply. You can't just throw us out. Maribel's expression remained unchanged. I do not seek revenge, she said. Only equilibrium. As the day passed, Darius grew quieter, thoughtful. I never realized how much you carried alone, he murmured. Maribel gave a faint smile. Mothers often carry invisible weight, she replied. Vanessa avoided eye contact entirely. She always plays the victim, she muttered. Maribel turned to her slowly. A victim stays silent, she said. A survivor learns to speak. Vanessa stiffened, unable to respond. The air vibrated with quiet truth, and for the first time Maribel felt seen. Not pitied, not mocked, simply acknowledged. Later that evening, Darius sat beside her. Mom. I'm sorry, he whispered sincerely. Maribel studied his face. Apologies heal only when followed by change, she said gently. I understand, he nodded. She placed her tired hand over his. You are not my enemy, Darius, she murmured. But you must choose who you are becoming. He lowered his gaze. I want to be better, he said. Maribel exhaled deeply. Then begin with listening. Truly listening. The weight between them softened slightly. As night fell, Maribel returned to her room not as a prisoner, but as a woman reclaiming her strength. She sat on the edge of her bed and whispered, You are still here, Maribel. You still matter. Outside, the home felt quieter, uncertain yet different. No longer ruled by mockery, but by awakening awareness. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more conversations, more confrontations. But for the first time in years, Maribel felt something rising within her chest, a quiet certainty. She was no longer invisible. And the story of her reclaiming would only grow stronger. The next morning, Maribel woke before sunrise, as she always had, but something inside her felt different. She no longer moved like a guest tiptoeing through borrowed space. She walked into the kitchen, poured her tea, and sat at the table without hesitation. Vanessa glanced at her and whispered, She's acting like royalty now. Maribel heard but did not respond. Darius shifted uncomfortably. Mom, do you want eggs? He asked carefully. She nodded. Yes, thank you, she replied simply. That small exchange carried a weight of respect that had been missing for too long. As the day unfolded, Maribel decided to revisit the old routines she once loved. She opened the balcony doors, letting fresh air fill the apartment. This place needs life again, she murmured. Darius watched her in silence. You used to sing while cleaning, he said softly. Maribel smiled faintly. I stopped when no one listened, she replied. Vanessa scoffed but said nothing. The air between them remained tense, but Maribel no longer felt afraid. Each step she took, each breath she claimed, reminded her that her voice still belonged to her. Later that afternoon, Darius approached her hesitantly. Mom, do you remember when Dad used to build things on the balcony? He asked. Maribel's eyes softened. He said his hands could shape dreams, she whispered. They stood quietly for a moment. I miss him, Darius admitted. Maribel nodded. So do I, she said gently. Vanessa watched from afar, irritated by the emotional connection. But Maribel saw the shift in her son's eyes. He was beginning to remember where he came from, and that realization slowly cracked the pride that had silenced him. Vanessa, however, grew defensive as Maribel regained her place. "You're turning him against me," she accused one evening. Maribel folded her hands calmly. "No, Vanessa. I'm teaching him to see clearly." Vanessa's lips trembled. "You just want control." Maribel shook her head slowly. "I want dignity," she replied. Darius looked between them, conflicted. "Please stop," he muttered. Maribel softened her tone. "I am not your enemy," she said. "But I refuse to remain your shadow." That night, Maribel sat by her window with a cup of warm tea. The moonlight brushed softly against her tired skin. She remembered the girl she once was, filled with fearless dreams and unstoppable hope. "You let them shrink you," she whispered to her reflection. "But not anymore." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with resolve. Outside, the quiet city hummed. Inside, a different stillness rested, the peace of a woman reclaiming her identity piece by piece, with patience and quiet strength. Darius began visiting her room more often, asking questions he had ignored for years. "How did you and Dad save for this apartment?" he asked one afternoon. Maribel smiled sadly. "With hunger and faith," she replied. He lowered his head. "I never knew it was that hard." Maribel touched his shoulder lightly. "Children rarely see the sacrifices until they grow old enough to understand." He swallowed bitterly. "I failed you," he murmured. She shook her head. "You forgot me," she said. There is a difference. Vanessa felt the shift deeply. She noticed Darius's softened stance, the way he now defended his mother. "You're choosing her over me," she snapped. Darius sighed. "I'm choosing decency," he replied quietly. Vanessa scoffed. "She's manipulating you." From the doorway, Maribel watched silently. "A mother's love doesn't manipulate," she said calmly. Vanessa fell silent. The room hung heavy, yet a clear truth lingered. Maribel was no longer fighting, she was simply standing, and that steady presence unsettled those who had enjoyed her silence. Weeks passed, and the home slowly reshaped itself. Darius began helping more, speaking kinder, listening deeper. Vanessa remained distant but cautious. One evening, Maribel prepared a simple meal of soup and bread. "Sit," she told them. "Let us eat like family again." Darius smiled faintly. Vanessa hesitated, then joined. "This is different," Darius whispered. Maribel nodded. "Respect changes everything," she replied. No laughter, no mockery filled the room. Only slow, careful understanding rebuilding broken ground. Later that night, Darius spoke softly. "I never realized how lonely you felt here." Maribel exhaled slowly. "Loneliness is silent," she replied. "It only speaks when the heart has grown tired." He reached for her hand. "I want to do better," he said sincerely. Maribel nodded. "Then honor your roots," she replied. Vanessa observed in silence, finally recognizing the strength that came not from shouting but from calm firmness. For the first time, she saw Maribel not as a burden, but as an immovable foundation. One morning Maribel surprised them both. "Vanessa, sit with me," she said gently. Vanessa stiffened. "Why?" she asked. "Because I want peace," Maribel replied. They sat together, tension heavy but controlled. "I do not want war in this home," Maribel continued. "But I will not tolerate humiliation." Vanessa looked down. "I didn't know it hurt you that much," she muttered. Maribel met her eyes. "Words carry power," she whispered. "Use them wisely." That moment planted a small seed of awareness inside the younger woman's heart. Days became calmer. The air no longer choked with hostility, but with cautious rebuilding. Maribel found herself laughing softly again. "It's been a long time since I heard that sound," Darius remarked. She smiled faintly. "It forgot how to breathe," she replied. Vanessa watched quietly. "You're changing the house," she admitted. Maribel nodded. "No, Vanessa. I'm restoring it." The difference lay not in rebellion, but in rebirth, a quiet reawakening of self-worth and presence. One afternoon, Darius approached her while she watered the balcony plants. "Mom, I remember when you taught me to plant seeds," he said. She smiled. "You said they would become trees," she replied. "And they did," he whispered. Maribel looked at the soil. "So can people," she said softly. He nodded thoughtfully. "I want to grow too," he confessed. Maribel squeezed his hand gently. "Then start with respect," she replied. "Everything else will follow." Vanessa, for the first time, attempted kindness. "Do you need help with the groceries?" she asked stiffly. Maribel nodded. "Yes, thank you." Though the exchange felt awkward, it was a step forward. Darius smiled quietly. The home felt less like a battlefield and more like a wounded space learning to heal. Maribel did not rush forgiveness. She moved slowly, wisely, understanding that trust was built brick by brick, not granted through sudden apologies or forced smiles. One quiet evening, Maribel pulled out old photo albums. "Come," she invited softly. Darius sat beside her. Vanessa lingered hesitantly nearby. "This was your father," Maribel said, tracing the worn image. "He believed in dignity." Darius studied the photo. "I forgot his lessons," he said softly. Maribel nodded. "But you remembered now," she replied. Vanessa watched silently, absorbing the history she once mocked. The room filled with nostalgia and respect. "Will you ever forgive us?" Darius asked gently. Maribel paused, then answered slowly. "Forgiveness grows like a seed," she said. "It needs time, water, and sincerity." He nodded. "I will earn it," he vowed. She smiled faintly. "That is all I ask." Vanessa lowered her gaze, reflecting. For the first time, accountability pressed against her pride. The walls that once echoed cruelty now carried the softness of healing beginnings. That night, Maribel slept peacefully, something she had not done in years. No weight crushed her chest. No fear trembled her bones. She whispered into the stillness. "You did well, Maribel." The cracked ceiling no longer felt like a prison but a resting space. Outside, the city slept. Inside, a broken mother slowly stitched her soul, thread by thread, breath by breath. She knew challenges still awaited, but she no longer faced them as a silent shadow. Weeks later, the house felt warmer. Vanessa became quieter, more thoughtful. Darius grew gentler, more present. Maribel observed the changes without gloating. "Growth happens when humility enters," she said during dinner. Darius smiled. Vanessa nodded. The table that once held ridicule now held reflection. Peace did not arrive loudly, but it arrived steadily, with understanding replacing ego and kindness filling the hollow spaces left by neglect. Maribel stood once again by the mirror, studying her reflection. "You are still strong," she whispered. The tired eyes now carried courage. The trembling hands now held purpose. She no longer begged for space. She owned it emotionally, physically, spiritually. Her journey had shifted from surviving to reclaiming. The woman they tried to silence had risen, unshaken and whole. That Sunday, Darius hugged her tightly. "Thank you for staying," he said softly. Maribel smiled. "I stayed for myself," she replied. Vanessa watched quietly, finally understanding the weight of Maribel's presence. Respect had returned not because of fear, but because of truth. The home had transformed not through anger, but through awakening. And as Maribel sat in the soft glow of evening light, she whispered, "I am no longer invisible." Her voice